There's something strange about Odysseus that nobody really talks about. He survives everything. And I don't just mean he's clever or brave. I mean he walks into situations where death is the only logical outcome. And somehow, every single time, the universe bends just enough to let him slip through. His men die, his ships sink, his plans fall apart, but he makes it home. And the more you look at his story, the more it starts to feel less like skill and more like something else entirely. Like the world kept deciding, for reasons we'll never fully understand, that this one guy wasn't allowed to die yet. So let's walk through it, because when you lay it out piece by piece, it stops sounding like a hero's journey and starts sounding like the luckiest 10 years anyone has ever lived. It begins after the Trojan War. Odysseus is one of the Greeks who finally brought Troy down after 10 years of fighting. He's ready to go home to Ithaca, to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. The trip should take a few weeks, maybe a month if the weather's bad. It takes him 10 years. And not because he's lost, because everything that can go wrong does go wrong, except he doesn't die. And that's the part that starts to feel weird. First major disaster, the Cyclops. Odysseus and his men end up trapped in a cave with a giant named Polyphemus who eats people. Not metaphorically. He literally grabs 2 men at a time and eats them. Odysseus and his crew are stuck inside with a boulder blocking the exit that's too heavy for them to move, so they're going to die. There's no way out. The Cyclops is going to eat all of them, one by one, until there's no one left. But Odysseus comes up with a plan. He gets the Cyclops drunk, tells him his name is Nobody, and then stabs him in the eye with a sharpened wooden stake while he's asleep. The Cyclops screams for help, but when the other Cyclopes ask who's attacking him, he yells, "Nobody is attacking me." So they leave, and in the chaos, Odysseus and his men tie themselves to the undersides of the Cyclops' sheep and escape when he lets the flock out to graze. It's clever, absolutely, but here's the thing. The plan only works if the Cyclops gets drunk enough to pass out. It only works if the other Cyclopes believe him when he says nobody is hurting him. It only works if the sheep walk out at the right time and the Cyclops doesn't notice human-sized lumps hanging from their bellies. Any one of those things goes wrong, and Odysseus dies in that cave. But none of them go wrong. Everything lines up perfectly, and he escapes. Except he can't just leave it at that. As they're sailing away, Odysseus shouts back at the Cyclops and tells him his real name. He wants the credit. He wants the giant to know who outsmarted him. And that decision comes back to haunt him, because Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea, and Poseidon is now out for revenge. Which means Odysseus just made an enemy of the one god who controls whether or not he makes it home alive. But even that doesn't kill him. Not yet. Next stop, Circe. She's a sorceress who lives on an island, and when Odysseus's men show up, she turns them into pigs, just like that. Human beings one moment, animals the next. Odysseus goes to rescue them, and on the way he runs into Hermes, the messenger god, who just happens to be passing by. Hermes gives him a magical plant called moly that makes him immune to Circe's magic. So when Circe tries to turn Odysseus into a pig, it doesn't work, and instead of killing him, she's so impressed that she agrees to turn his men back into humans and let them stay on her island for a year. A year. They stay there for a full year, eating her food, sleeping in her halls, safe. And then she just lets them leave. She even gives Odysseus advice on how to get home. She tells him he has to go to the underworld first and talk to a dead prophet named Tiresias, who will tell him what to do next. And this is where it gets really strange, because Odysseus actually goes to the underworld, the land of the dead, the place you're not supposed to come back from. And he just walks in, talks to ghosts, gets his answers, and leaves. He's allowed to visit death and return, not because he fought his way out, not because he tricked anyone. He's just permitted to go and then come back. And I don't think people appreciate how insane that is. You don't get to do that. No one gets to do that, except him. After the underworld, he faces the sirens. These are creatures whose singing is so beautiful that sailors can't resist it. They steer their ships toward the sound and crash into the rocks and die. Everyone knows this. It's not a secret. It's a trap that works every single time. Except Odysseus knows it's coming, so he has his men plug their ears with beeswax and tie him to the mast of the ship. That way he can hear the song but can't act on it.
And it works. He survives the sirens, not by being stronger or braver than anyone else, but by following instructions he was given and preparing in advance, which is smart. But also, it only works because he knew they were coming. If Circe hadn't warned him, he'd have sailed straight into them like everyone else. He survives because someone told him what to avoid. That's not cleverness. That's just information and luck that he had it. Then comes the worst part of the journey, Scylla and Charybdis, two monsters guarding a narrow strait. On one side is Charybdis, a massive whirlpool that swallows entire ships. On the other side is Scylla, a six-headed monster that reaches down and grabs sailors off the deck. There's no way through without losing something. Circe already told him this. If he sails close to Charybdis, everyone dies. If he sails close to Scylla, she'll take 6 men, 1 for each head. Odysseus chooses Scylla. He doesn't tell his men. He just steers the ship close to her side of the strait, and she reaches down and takes 6 of them. He hears them scream his name as they're dragged away, and he keeps sailing, because that's the only way forward. He sacrifices 6 men so the rest can live, and it works. The ship makes it through. But here's the thing. He survives. His men don't. And that pattern repeats over and over. Every disaster, every trap, every impossible situation, Odysseus walks away, the people around him don't. And at a certain point, you have to ask whether that's strategy or just the universe deciding that he specifically gets to keep going. If you're still here, you're probably the kind of person who likes this kind of story, the kind that doesn't give easy answers. If that's you, there's more where this came from. After Scylla, the crew is exhausted. They land on an island where the sun god Helios keeps his sacred cattle. Odysseus has been warned not to touch them multiple times by multiple people. Do not kill the cattle. But his men are starving and he's asleep, and they make a choice. They kill the cattle and eat them. And when Helios finds out, he demands that Zeus punish them. So Zeus does. He destroys the ship with a lightning bolt. Everyone dies. Everyone except Odysseus. He's thrown into the water and clings to a piece of the wreckage. He floats for days, alone. And eventually he washes up on the island of Ogygia, where a goddess named Calypso lives, and she keeps him there for 7 years. She wants him to stay with her forever. She offers him immortality. She offers him a life without pain or aging or death, and he says no. He wants to go home. He wants to see his wife. He wants to see his son. So he sits on the beach every day and stares at the horizon and waits. And after 7 years, the gods finally intervene. Athena convinces Zeus to let him go, and Calypso is ordered to release him. She gives him materials to build a raft, and he sails away. But even then, Poseidon isn't done with him. He sends a storm that destroys the raft. Odysseus nearly drowns. Again. And again, he survives. He washes up on the shore of a kingdom called Phaeacia, where the people help him and finally give him a ship that takes him back to Ithaca. 20 years after he left. 10 years fighting in Troy. 10 years trying to get home. And when he finally arrives, his house is full of men trying to marry his wife and take his throne. They think he's dead. They've been eating his food and drinking his wine and pressuring Penelope to choose one of them. And Odysseus, disguised as a beggar, walks into his own home and nobody recognizes him, except his dog, Argos, who's been waiting for 20 years. The dog sees him, recognizes him, and then dies, right there, as if he'd been holding on just long enough to see his master one last time. Odysseus reveals himself. He kills all the suitors, every single one of them. He takes back his home. He reunites with his wife and his son. And that's where the story ends. He made it, against all odds, through every disaster, past every monster and every god who wanted him dead. He made it home. But here's what I keep thinking about. He didn't just survive. He survived when no one else did. His men died at the Cyclops cave. They died at Scylla. They died when Zeus struck the ship, but not him. He floated. He drifted. He washed ashore. And every time, someone was there to help him. Circe, Hermes, Calypso, the Phaeacians, Athena. He had gods on his side and gods against him. And somehow, the ones on his side always showed up at the right time.
So was he clever? Yes.
Was he brave? Absolutely. But was that enough? Or was there something else? Some invisible thread that kept pulling him forward, no matter how many times he should have drowned or starved or been torn apart? I think the honest answer is, we don't know. Maybe it was fate. Maybe the universe needed him to make it home for reasons we'll never understand. Maybe his story survived because he was the one person who lived to tell it. But I also think there's something quietly horrifying about being the only one who makes it, about watching everyone around you die while you keep going, about surviving not because you're better, but because you're allowed to. Odysseus made it home, but the cost of that was 20 years. His youth, his crew, his dog. The version of himself that left Ithaca was not the version that returned. Survival doesn't mean you come back whole. It just means you come back. And I think that's the part of the story that stays with you. Not the cleverness, not the monsters, but the weight of making it through when everything and everyone else didn't. He got his insane luck, but luck always costs something. And in the end, I'm not sure he would say it was worth it. I think he'd just say he didn't have a choice. He survived because the world let him. And he carried that weight for the rest of his life.